9 years ago, I was a very excited gamer. I was excited over the prospect of a game that would bring friends together, thrusting us into a shared world and keeping us interested with an ever-evolving experience. That game, of course, was Destiny, a looter shooter, an online RPG, and one of the first popular examples of a live service game on consoles. Now, the years that followed Destiny's launch are ancient history at this point, with the series having some very high highs and very low lows across its various expansions and even a sequel. More often than not though, Destiny would feel like it was throwing some excuse to just shoot aliens in a different, pretty locale. Because of this, I have had a very on and off again relationship with Destiny. I've checked out all of the various expansions across both D1 and 2, but I struggled to stick around after each campaign had been completed. It is a game that can be incredibly difficult to take in, especially with all of its rapidly expanding lore and narrative, and that becomes all the harder when you take a step back from the game. But since the launch of The Witch Queen in 2022, I've really felt that sense of excitement come back to me for the first time since the game's launch, and it culminated in Lightfall being one of my most anticipated releases of this year, and possibly in the entire series history. So strap in people, because now that the stage has been set, let's find out whether Destiny 2 Lightfall has been worth the wait. Lightfall picks things up in an exciting place. The Witness, the physical embodiment of an evil paracausal energy, or a child of the darkness, is at our doorstep, threatening to bring about a second collapse of our age. It's high stakes, and after the season of the Seraph campaign, it all felt like Destiny was finally about to thrust us into a war we have been training the best part of a decade for. That's because Lightfall is the second in a proposed trilogy of expansions, starting with The Witch Queen and ending with the final shape. It is the most straightforward and approachable that Destiny has felt in some time, with this 3-act story building up one big villain in The Witness. For all intents and purposes, Lightfall was shaping up to be our Infinity War, with the final shape being our endgame. However, I was really disappointed to find that that just wasn't the case. With the Witness staging an attack on the Traveller, we are very quickly hyperspaced away to a new setting in Neptune and the neon-lit city of Neomuna. Here we must take the fight to Callus, the former Emperor of the Cabal, and now the new disciple of the Witness. And of course we are shooting away to protect a new MacGuffin-styled place in the Vale, which is supposedly a dangerous link between both the Witness and the Traveller. In our mission we come across Rohan and Nimbus, a pair of Cloud Striders, the Neptunian comparable to Guardians in a world not touched by the darkness or the light. They join us on our mission to protect the Vale, along with the ominous Cloud Arc, which is vital to the survival of the citizens of Neomuna. The storyline and missions are what we've come to expect from Destiny, and truthfully there is nothing particularly wrong with it. Of course there's plenty of lore to dig into with these new characters and locations, but this feels like a really good seasonal storyline, or one of the mid-year expansions of old that Bungie have since dumped. In all honesty, I spent most of my time wishing I was back on Earth, fighting alongside the likes of Zavala, Ikora, or even Anna Bray in some epic battle that wasn't actually happening. The highs of Lightfall's opener felt like a portrayal of what the actual narrative was, as our time on Neptune felt too separated, and I struggled to connect with characters like Nimbus when I knew we had a host of characters that I already cared about who were already tied to this narrative to some degree but weren't being properly utilised. To contradict this, however, I do feel like Bungie are playing the long game here. I'm hoping that we get to see narrative seeds planted in Lightfall sprout across the various seasonal campaigns across the next year, and I hope that's the case because it's better than having to wait until the final shape next year, and it could also tackle that issue that I've had with the series where I struggle to remain interested, because this way we are tying in the central narrative to the seasonal campaign, so overall we could have a far more interesting year for Destiny. But it does come at a bit of a cost, leaving Lightfall feeling somewhat anemic, especially when it is following up one of the best expansions in the series history with The Witch Queen. Everything that's happening narratively towards the campaign's conclusion feels big and exciting, but there's also no context for a lot of it. So it isn't thought-provoking, it's more just confusing. I'd have loved some answers, or maybe even the context to know what questions I was supposed to be asking. Instead, I was left with a resounding what is happening? Which I don't really think was the right way to go with the penultimate expansion in the Light and Darkness saga. But all of this has just been the story. What about Lightfall from a gameplay perspective? Well, truthfully, this is the most fun I have had with an FPS in years. Thankfully, the legendary campaign difficulty returns from the Witch Queen, making Lightfall's droves of enemy Cabal and Vex incredibly engaging, especially when playing in a fire team. And then there were the Tormentors, a new intimidating enemy type, which were just so much fun to fight. It's the first time that I remember being sort of giddy and nervous when a Destiny enemy had spawned in, and when 2 of them were thrown in a level, I was borderline euphoric. They've really forced you to bring your A game, and it was nice to fight against an enemy that was difficult and not just a bullet sponge. Then there is Strand, the new subclass, which I can already tell will be a fan favourite. It feels fresh, it feels powerful, and with the introduction of the Strand grapple, it really feels like it'll liven up the gameplay. And that's coming from someone that thinks Destiny has some of the best FPS gameplay ever. Hitting up a good swing to glide into a momentum melee attack, using it as a way to escape, or even just to get into a good position for the perfect supercast. Mixing up the mobility and the power of Strand was a lot of fun. It's a subclass I can't wait to make the most of with future builds. And that really is the contradictory nature of Lightfall. Narratively, it's a letdown, and I was even disappointed by the lack of life found in Neomuna. But there is a surface level excitement there because we know that we are on the verge of something big. It's just annoying to be served up yet another setup when it's really time to be getting in the thick of it. So where do I stand with all of this? While there is a lot to say about the story, and I really don't think that it is where it should be, I still can't help but be somewhat excited by it all. I feel like there is a bustle in the tower now. There's change in the air where everyone playing Destiny knows that we are on the verge of something big. It does place a lot of hope in the final shape, and I do think that is something to be worried about. But when I imagined an ever-evolving world way back in the D1 launch, it's something like this that I had imagined, a world that I felt a part of, a world that I felt like I was there for the big events. So when I say that we are on the verge of greatness, I really do hope that we get there. But for sure, I'm only as accepting of yet another waiting game because of that gameplay experience. This is hands down the most fun you can have with a shooter right now. I love an FPS game. I love the likes of Battlefield, of Call of Duty, of Apex Legends, but there's no game out there right now that makes you feel quite as entrenched in its mechanics, its movement, its weapons, its gear, quite like Destiny can, and Lightfall acts as a brilliant reminder of that. Thank you everyone for listening to my thoughts on Destiny 2 Lightfall. Let me know how you've been getting on with Lightfall, whether it's its story, gameplay, those new enemy types, comment down below. If you enjoyed this review, why not leave a like too? We produce weekly video content all within the world of PlayStation, so if that sounds like your kind of thing, then I welcome you to subscribe to us here on Push Square. Anyway, thanks again for watching everyone, and I'll see you in the next one, Guardians.